What is up, everyone? It's episode 2 of Project Roddy. Today we're installing a headset, and then we're going to slip the fork in. We're not really going to fully install the fork. Like, I'm not going to press the star nut in or anything. We're just going to put the fork in, we'll put the stem and bars onto the fork to keep it from falling out, and then we'll put the wheel onto the bike, the front wheel, just so we can stand the bike up out of the way. We've got a few other things we need to do before we can move on. To install the headset, all we need is our Unior 1680/4 headset press. To secure the stem to the fork, we have a 4mm hex because that's what this stem uses. And to install the maxle, we use a 6mm hex here. So as you can see, really not a lot involved. It's pretty simple. First thing we're going to want to do is basically just smear some grease inside the head tube wherever it's going to make contact with the headset cups. Anytime you've got metal on metal contact, you want to make sure, almost any time, you want to make sure there's some sort of grease there just to help take up or help avoid some of the creaking that's inevitable. Almost any time you hear somebody complain about a creak in their bike, it's because you've got metal rubbing on metal. If you put some grease in there, you're going to alleviate a lot of that. Next thing we want to do is install one of the cups. I don't ever recommend installing both at the same time. What winds up happening then is you just run a bigger chance of putting one of them in or both of them in crooked and either ruining the head tube or ruining the cups. So I do one at a time. That means you've got a good reference face to press against. And we'll start with the bottom. So this frame, this head tube is 1.5 inch bottom, 1 1/8 top. And the way our headset press is designed, you don't need a drift for that 1.5 inch cup. It fits really nicely right on that bottom plate. And you don't need a drift when you're just pressing against the head tube, so we're going to get rid of that one as well. We'll just drop this whole thing through, and we'll bring that up from the bottom. Now, one of the things I like to pay attention to is if there's manufacturer's logos of any sort on the headset cups. I like those to align typically towards the front. So I'm just going to pop that free, rotate it till the cane creak bit is at the top, or at the front there. And then I'll slowly start bringing the press together, making sure I've got it lined up where I want. And I'm going to quick zoom in so you can see that cup go in. Now, one of the things we want to pay attention to is to make sure that this cup goes in as perpendicular to the head tube as possible. We don't want it going at an angle. Again, just like installing both of the cups, that's going to either damage the head tube or the cup, or both. So once we're sure it's going in straight and our logos are lined up where we want, we just turn the press in, and as you can see, that is in nice and evenly. We only turn until we feel it bottom out. We don't want to turn any further. It's a really strong, relatively fine-pitched thread on this press, and if you keep threading it in, there is the potential of damaging the head tube. But that's in nice and even all the way around. So for the top, we're just going to basically repeat the process we did for the bottom. We're going to install the cup and our drift. We slip the press through the head tube, and then we'll bring the bottom plate up till it meets the bottom cup that we just installed. And that actually, almost met. There we go. Now, there's no logos on this one to line up, so I'm not worried about that. All I want to do is make sure, again, that it's going in perpendicular. And it looks like it's going in pretty straight. It's a pretty even gap all the way around. Our press is lined up where it needs to be, so we'll just drive it home. Again, just feeling for it to bottom out. Before we take the press out, we just look around, make sure it's in evenly all the way around the head tube, which it is. You can see there's no gaps or anything like that, and so that's done. Carefully remove everything so you don't drop drift on your new frame like I've done earlier. And that part of the whole job is done. What we're going to do now is just install the bearings. And these just drop right in. You don't need the press for it. But again, because you have metal on metal, you'll want to spread some grease in there just to make sure you have a creak-free bike as long as possible. And just make sure you spread it around to everywhere it needs to go. We're also going to make sure we apply some grease to the crown race of the fork, which we've previously installed. Sorry, I kind of jumped the gun and haven't felt like taking it apart to show, but maybe I'll do that at another time. And we're just going to smear that around like so until that entire crown race is covered. We'll take our lower bearing and just drop it over. Our upper bearing will go into the head tube. You want the tapered sides of the bearing. You can see if you look closely, there's a taper on top there, and it's a 90 degree on the bottom. On the upper, you've got a taper on the bottom and a 90 degree on top. That taper goes towards the cups. You want to keep that in mind. Don't put those in upside down. And then it all just is going to slip in like so. We have our top cap assembly with the tapered washer, the split washer. That's going to go on, and this top cap has an O-ring on it to help seal things. We want to make sure that that O-ring isn't getting damaged as we install it. So all I'm doing now is wiping off the steer with a rag with some degreaser on it, just to get whatever grease is left over off before I put the stem on. And actually what I want to do is put some spacers on. I have no idea where I'm going to fit on this bike, so I'm just going to load it up with as many spacers as possible. And that looks conveniently about much. You might think that I've actually installed this once before already. And we're just going to get it snug. We're not looking to get it to torque or even straight or anything like that. We just don't want that fork to fall out because it will. And just so it looks good, we'll kind of straighten that up a little bit. And that's that. Now we're just going to put that wheel in, just so we can stand the bike up and actually get it rolling, so I can move it kind of out of the way. And as I said, all we're going to do is kind of just slip that wheel in for the time being, just so we can conveniently get the bike out of the way. All we do is slip the axle through, and then with our 6mm, which is what this axle requires, we're just going to get it snug. We're not torquing it, we're not going to ride it, it's just to roll around. And that's it. We're done. And it's our headset installed, our fork, and temporarily our front wheel. Looks good. Next episode we'll probably install the star nut just so we can wrap up that front end. Maybe we'll do the brakes. I'm still waiting on the drivetrain, so that's gonna have to wait a little while. Stay tuned. Thanks for watching.